I mean, yeah, that's entrepreneurship at its
just a blue collar fella.
Son of a farmer. Welcome to the Charlotte Buzz, where we drink beer from local breweries while telling stories about the neighborhoods they're from. I'm Chrissy, and this is Drew.
Today, we're going to be drinking Ice Cubes of Pimp.
Hey.
From Southern Range.
Bam. We're just going to keep hopping up and down and all around to the greater Charlotte area. If I can open this. Ice Cube's a pimp, goodness. But he's also...
a beer.
Yeah. Get it? Okay, it's not just me.
Yeah.
I don't feel terrible about my life. All right, YouTube, you get to enjoy this. I'm taking the stuff off the top of it.
You want me to go get my channel locks?
I got it.
Okay.
I got it. Enjoy that interlude there, YouTube.
It is a hazy IPA.
Ew.
Double dry hopped with Citra, Mosaic, and Falconer's Flight.
Ooh.
I think that's a new one on the show.
It might be.
Doesn't sound like a hop to me.
It's a very, very light color. Like, it looks like pineapple juice.
Yeah.
Minus the slight pulpiness that is pineapple juice. But the color is that very, like, I mean, it's hazy, but, you know, that, like, hazy yellowy.
Yeah. Smells good.
Let me see. I mean, it kind of smells like pineapple. It does not, I don't know what episode way back when it was, where we were talking about pineapple juice from a can. It does not smell like that, but it does smell like pineapple juice.
Smells more like grapefruit to me than pineapple.
Okay. I would say, yeah, it probably tastes more grapefruity. I was about to say it seems thinner than normal, but I might be thinking more of the Dippa flavor than a hazy feel. So I think that's why I think it's a little thinner, yeah. Fruity, but not like super potent in the fruit. Yeah. I would agree with like some grapefruitiness. It's got a little kick, but nothing like. Yeah, I don't know. It'll drink.
Pretty solid, yeah. It'll drink. I think.
I would like to know why they named it Ice Cubes of Pimp.
Yeah.
Their website is very lacking in information.
In the description.
Yeah, in the description of their beers, about themselves, all the things.
It is a 6.9% though.
Hey.
So, pretty high for a non-Dippa.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way because I was like, oh, that's what we had last time, but that was a Dippa last week, wasn't it? Maybe it wasn't.
No, just a New England. If this isn't a New England, I don't know what makes something a New England or not. We should probably find that out.
I'm not sure.
But it's very New Englandy.
Mm-hmm. That is one of their primary styles they brew.
Okay.
So.
It doesn't say that it's a New England on here.
For any of the IPAs, does it say if it's a New England?
No, it doesn't say.
Okay. So I would suggest that it's a New England. But no, I don't know really what makes a New England either. But something about Southern Range is that they do tend to brew more IPAs than anything else because the owner likes IPAs more, and he said they're more fun to brew. And so New England was a style that he was getting into more. And so that's been a kind of focus of his. Do you have anything else to say about the beer, or I can just keep telling you about Southern Range?
You can tell us about Southern Range.
All
I
right.
was gonna say more about beers at Southern Range, but you can.
I can finish this and then we can chit chat.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. So they opened as Southern Range Brewery as the first official brewery in Monroe in May of 2016, but they actually opened 6 months prior to that as a craft beer bar because they wanted to open their brewery without any kind of loans or investors or any of that. So for 6 months, they were a craft beer bar to increase their own revenue, and then had enough that they could get all the equipment they needed to brew within the building, and then officially in May 2016.
That explains a lot.
It really
about
does.
The inside.
It sure does. And so the owner had a bunch of hobbies. Shocker, homebrewing was one of them. But he also did a lot of building and furniture restoration, which I thought was fun.
Okay.
And again, IPA heavy because that's what he prefers and just thinks are interesting to mess around with. And he said one of his favorite things is converting people who, like some of the locals that have become regulars. He just thinks it's so cool watching them convert from lifelong, Miller Lite, Bud Light type of drinkers to now favoring craft beer and having specifics that they prefer in Southern Range. And so I just thought that was cool. And I think very fitting for kind of the area as well, that it just seems, Monroe's not the potentially like pretentious craft beer type of place that you kind of come to expect in certain parts of the greater Charlotte area.
Not a single hipster.
Right. And so it's just, it just seems very fitting, and I think it's just a cool scene, cool vibe. But yes, the revenue thing was most interesting to me, and I thought that was actually a pretty clever way to create your own revenue. I thought that was pretty cool, but that's pretty much what I've got. But first and I believe only brewery in Monroe for right now.
Yeah.
So
As far as I know, it's the only one. But the decor, they have some signs up of other breweries. And I think I made the comment while we were there this time that it felt like they had less than they did last time.
Yes.
They had a little bit more of their own style in there. So maybe they're still transitioning.
Yeah. I imagine that's a process. And yes, when the first
get your
time,
own stuff.
Yeah, the first time we had ever been there, we came in and we were like, I mean, this is cool, but they're promoting every other brewery around.
Yeah.
Why, I get that the craft community is in fact a community and it's not so cutthroat per se, but also why would you do that in your own building to that degree of there are signs where everywhere, and it just felt a little strange, and now it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And yes, it has slowly lessened, so I get it.
But
so today we're going to be talking about the greater Monroe area, and I'm just going to let you take it away. So tell me things.
okay. Well, I'm going to tell you something that I've told you before.
But
because,
not in depth.
Yeah.
And let's be real. I have a short attention span.
I like to give my little tidbits of things that I know.
He likes to think he knows everything, guys.
I do know a lot, though.
So he's got to throw tidbits out anywhere we go. Oh, by the way, I know something.
So I've pointed out
Check me out.
before, hey, that's the first Belk building, first store for the Belk department stores.
And the first time you said that, I probably
What's
said
Belk?
something of yes, what the heck is Belk? Because Yankee, at least we're in my land of Yankee, we don't have it.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure where the line is drawn of them existing and not, but it's not from my neck of the woods.
Yeah. Well, since I had told you that before, and talking about just a department store in general is kind of boring, I decided to go with
You're not just going to shop till you drop?
No.
We can't title this Mall Madness?
Well,
I mean, that was a 90s girl game, but
nah.
I would still play that. I miss 90s games.
Sounds awful. Anyways.
You'd hate it, yeah?
I'm going to talk about the founder, William Henry Belk. He was born on June 2nd, 1862, as the son of a farmer. Probably
You son of a farmer.
probably like 98% of the area.
Shocker. Yep.
His father, Abel Nelson Washington Belk. I didn't put his mom's name in here, but her middle name was Narcissus.
Narcissus?
Yeah, Narcissus.
Narcissus. That's well, there's like Greek mythology, but it's Narcissa is a Harry Potter character.
But it's like, sounds like narcissist.
Sure. That's where Narcissus comes from, is the Greek god Narcissus, or Greek Roman mythology. Yeah. Narcissus is where that term comes from, because
I thought that was an interesting name.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I meant to put that in here, but I didn't, because
sheesh,
I do things like that
half-assed.
But his father, whoa, this is family friendly.
I mean, PG-13 gets like 1 or 2 cuss words, right?
Whatever. His father, who was a farmer, was drowned by Sherman's raiders during the Civil War.
Yikes.
For refusing to divulge the whereabouts of his father's gold mine.
Oh.
So apparently William Henry Belk's grandfather had a gold mine. And I found some things that were like, it didn't exist, or they had closed it down years ago, like it didn't exist anymore, but it did at one point. But anyways, they had found out about it somehow and drowned him.
Done dead.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So that's an interesting little tidbit. William showed signs of entrepreneurship early on.
Did he have a lemonade stand?
No.
Oh.
But when he was 12, the Central Hotel was being built in Monroe.
Okay.
I don't know where that is. And back then, the bricks had to be made by hand. They didn't have any brick making machines.
What?
And so the bricks were not made on site, and they had to be hauled from wherever the guy was making the bricks to the building. And William, at 12, offered to haul the bricks for 25 cents a day. So already trying to make that money.
I mean, granted, also people did work way younger, but yes. Get it?
At the age of 14, Belk went to work in a dry goods store for a salary of $5 a month. He probably should have stuck to
25 cents a day.
25 cents a day.
Yeah. Wait, $5 a month?
Yeah.
It depends on how many days a week he worked.
Yeah. Because that'd be 20. 20 days at 25 cents a piece. I don't know.
Anyway.
He worked there for 11 years and became the head man of the store, the manager.
All right.
And only stuck with that for a year when at 26 years old, he decided to establish his own business.
Get it?
He had saved up $750, borrowed $500, and had $3,000 worth of merchandise for which he traded. I don't know what he traded.
All I'm picturing is the Oregon Trail when it's like, do you want to trade this for that? And
yeah. So he had this $3,000 of merchandise, $1,250 in funding, and he opened a 22-foot by 70-foot store in downtown Monroe. He named this store the New York Racket.
Oh.
They said he liked the name because it sounded big. But funny,
I feel like you would be friends with this guy.
Whenever I first read it, I thought it said the New York Ratchet.
We have come full circle in terminology, friends.
I was like, I don't know.
Oh, no.
I don't know about it. And then I was like, oh, that's Racket. Okay.
Oh,
but
goodness.
New York Racket.
All right.
So it only took him about 6 months before he had paid off all his debts.
Dang.
And had made a clear profit of $3,100.
Dang.
So he could restock with $3,000 more material, but I'm sure that was covered in his expenses. So made 31. One of the reasons for his fast success is because he had pioneered what was seen at the time as a new business method or model for the Southeast.
Okay.
He had like a clear price on goods. There was like a price tag on the materials, and haggling wasn't allowed. Mm-hmm. It was just whatever that price was, that's what it was.
Right.
And he also had a return policy. Mm. And something that was not normal, especially in the South, was there was no credit. Mm-hmm. So you had to pay in cash. Mm-hmm. So down here, I'm sure up there too, but the farmers would take the goods, have a credit line at the store, and then when harvest time came, they'd pay them back. Yeah. But he had a cash-only business. There's no credit. Didn't want to keep up with all that. Mm-hmm.
I think we could get along with this guy just fine. Yeah.
So he didn't have a lot of, because he didn't do the credit, he was able to make his money quick because people had to pay instead of being in the negative until they paid. Mm-hmm. But business was going well. Wanted to open a couple more stores, but at first he wanted to convince his brother, John Montgomery Belk, the town physician or a local physician, to join the business, and he dropped the doctor world and entered the business world.
Well, good job for him. Good convincing, bro.
They opened a few more locations. It was like Union, South Carolina, and Chester, South Carolina. And then they decided to open one in Charlotte on East Trade Street. And they got that specific spot because it was next to the cotton platform. Mm-hmm. So that when farmers went and sold their goods, they could immediately spend it in their store.
I mean, product placement. You get it in the right spot. Bam.
And that Charlotte store was not called the New York Racket. It is Belk Brothers Company. So they had changed the name to Belk by this point. In addition to the new business methods that I just talked about, he used innovative advertising and personal customer service. He would, during the summer months, would have somebody handing ice waters to people as they came in.
That's cool.
And he had...
that seems cool for even now, but then, that was, life-giving, literally.
Because there's probably no AC, no way to cool down, so ice water is the only way you get it.
Right. And even just beyond the cooling, you're out working in the fields all day and all kinds, you'd bring people in just for the water, literally just for the water. Okay.
Another thing on the customer service side that they still do today, which I find annoying, but I guess some people find it helpful, is they have specialized, purchasing specialists in each department. Oh. So if you go to shoes, there's a shoe dude. If you go to dresses, there's a dress chick. There
can't be a dress dude?
I mean, there could be. And there could be a shoe chick.
Genderist.
But so that way they had the knowledge on what you were getting, make sure you got the right purchase for yourself. Mm-hmm. That was a game changer, apparently.
I could see that. I mean, in that time for sure. Yeah. I know now, at least for people like us who are not affluent in the world, we're like, yo, just let me get my crap and leave me alone.
Yeah, I know what I want already.
Right.
That's why I'm here.
Right. I'm not in here to browse.
Yeah.
I'm on a mission. Get out of my way. But carry on.
So they had those few stores, opened a few more in the Charlotte area. Like Concord had one. Mm-hmm. But they wanted to expand further. So he came up with a inventive partnership agreements with stores across the South.
Okay.
Did any of that make sense?
I'm just intrigued by the phrasing inventive partnership and waiting to hear what that means.
So instead of just buying a company that was already there or starting his new thing, he would partnership with stores that had already established themselves. And he would give them management advice, like be like a counselor of sorts, and supply them with their goods from his warehouses in Charlotte.
So it's kind of like a distribution, but...
Yeah, so it's a partnership, though. He's like... So most of these, they were established, but not necessarily doing well.
Okay.
So he would buy... I don't know if he would buy them right out or would just a stake in them. But he's like, you're going to keep doing what you're doing...
But you're also going to sell some of my stuff.
Yeah, you're going to sell my stuff, and I'm going to, like, help you with management advice or management coaching.
Okay.
And so the reason I think he didn't buy it right out is because, or maybe it was a marketing thing, he would just put Belk in front of the store name and hyphenate it. So in Virginia, there were Leggett stores, Legget. And so they were now known as Belk Leggett. And then in Alabama, there was Hudson, and it became Belk Hudson, and Tennessee and Georgia and all these southern states. He was just getting a piece of the action, basically.
Getting some brand recognition.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I thought was interesting is this is way down the road. We're like early 2000s. They decide, hey, this is not good for our branding to have Belk dash whatever.
So into the 2000s, that's still a thing.
It was, yeah.
Oh.
And so in 2000s, that's when they started changing them all to just Belk.
Yeah.
But I was like, what?
I didn't realize it would have lasted that long.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, especially being in this area where they were just called Belk.
Yeah. That's what I imagine, like, okay, that happened. And then, maybe 5, 10, 15, maybe
50s.
even 20 years later, they'd have gotten bought out. But dang.
Yeah. Because I was reading that, I was like...
That was way too... Yeah. Wait, did I read that?
That took way too long.
Yeah.
You're just now figuring out that that's not good for branding?
Yikes. All right.
Yeah, because, I mean, if you saw... Especially the one in Tennessee, Parks came first. The name...
Oh.
So it was Parks Belk. So if you saw Belk Hudson and Parks Belk...
You'd be like, what
you might would think they were two different things.
Yeah. At least Belk dash something, you could be like... I don't know. You could just think, oh, maybe it's a different location of the same thing. Like... Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But fair enough.
But, so he's taking all these companies over, basically, and today there are more than 300 Belk stores in 16 states.
Dang.
And a lot of it has to do with slowly taking over these dying brands and turning them into Belks. More about old William, though. In 1915, at the age of 53, he got married.
Huh?
They say finally got married. So for the first time.
He was busy, man.
Yeah. Had 6 children.
He was busy, man.
One of them was
53. Who wants to start having 6 kids at 53?
Oh, Will Henry.
I mean, I know you've got a good, like, let me hand this off to you type of deal, but, like, who wants... I mean, I realized schooling and all that was not quite the same, but, like, who wants to be 71 years old at your first kid's... 72 years old at your first kid's high school graduation, let alone the other 5, even if they were back to back to back each year?
Who knows? Man was busy. He was...
Be almost 80.
Opening 300... Well,
at a minimum.
They didn't have 300 stores back then, but...
I know what you mean.
He was opening all these stores. He was a busy man. He ain't got time for women and kids.
He got busy.
He ain't got time for women and kids. Anyways, one of those children's was John Montgomery Belk. You may have heard that name before. It's the same name as his brother. Which I don't know. I didn't look up John Montgomery's
life story.
Yeah. I didn't look up his birthday. But John Montgomery Belk, the brother, did die early on.
Okay.
So maybe it was like a
memorial type of. That's fair.
John Montgomery, though, the son, not the brother, went on to be the mayor of Charlotte.
Hey.
And if you've ever heard of John Belk Freeway,
hey,
that's part of 277. That's named after that fella.
Get it?
Well, Belk managed his stores until his death in 1952 at the age of 89.
Did all of his kids graduate high school? Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Fair enough.
Because that'd be
30, I want to know how old his wife was.
35.
Because no 53-year-old woman is having 6 kids.
That's true. I mean,
she's not having. Yeah, I was like, she is not having 6 kids.
She was probably 20.
She could maybe get you 1 kid, and even then, it's really doubtful and really dangerous in so many ways.
Especially back then.
So many ways.
Yeah.
She's certainly not getting you 6. Yikes.
So anyway, the family's pretty well known. I mean,
sure,
especially around here,
around these parts.
The Belk College of Business at UNCC was named after just the family in general, because of all that the company Belk have done for the area,
contributions and whatnot,
and being the mayor. I think he was the mayor for 4 terms.
Wow!
So he was a pretty popular mayor.
There's not term limits on
mayors. I don't think so. No.
Okay. I was like, I don't think so.
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so, but I'm considering I have a background in political science, have shockingly little knowledge on American.
Well, that would probably be a rule that's made by each state individually.
That's true.
And maybe even for mayor, it's maybe even town individually, the city.
True.
So,
well, it's just also something like I do have a background in poli-sci, but it's all international. So American politics, there's very little I know about American politics, which is very unhelpful to me, but I just wasn't interested when I was in school.
So you can see a statue of William Henry Belk on the Trail of History in Midtown near the Target.
Hey, I've been there.
You've been on a Trail of History?
No, I've been to the Target. Hashtag white girl.
But that's
it's across from the Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
Basic white girl.
But right there. That's where the Trail of History is at.
I was about to say there's not a Starbucks, but there is in freaking Target. So.
I was going to say that, what's his name? Captain Jack?
Pilsner.
He also has
Captain Jack Pilsner.
Yeah. He's got a statue there.
Oh, okay.
As well.
Is it literally like a walking trail?
It's that little greenway that's right there. You know, like if you're looking at the Target and Uptown and you take a left and you go down that road a little bit and there's all that park looking thing on the right. That's the Trail of History's at the.
We should go through that sometime.
What's it called? The Little Sugar Creek Greenway. Mm-hmm. It's all in there.
We should wander in there sometime.
Yeah.
The nature.
Maybe in the winter.
The nature and the sun. I know, it's just going to murder you.
Yeah.
You're like a freaking vampire only in the summer.
Yeah. And a couple interesting facts about Belk. Cam Newton has his own clothing line, Made, that is exclusively at Belk.
Hey.
So if you want to represent QB1, you can go get you a Made suit. It's like fine wear.
It's like fancy stuff.
Yeah, like suits and ties.
So it's discriminating against the ladies.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't know if he's got lady stuff.
Anyway.
And the largest Belk store is South Park Mall.
I have walked past that to go to the Apple store. Probably through it.
It is considered one of their flagship stores and carries way more stuff than most Belks.
So his very original first shop was that one that's in downtown Monroe.
Yes.
The Ratchet.
Yep.
The New York Ratchet. Cool.
But, I mean, somewhat interesting life.
I mean, that's cool, though. I did not know that it was not called Belk for so long or any of that.
And it was more of a...
And I didn't realize either, like, I knew that we used to live in more of a barter society and now we don't, and not really realizing where that transition happened. And so it's really cool to know, like, he pretty much sparked that transition. And maybe there were other people in various other places, but at least in this area, he sparked that transition, and that's pretty cool. I mean, that's a big change in our economy.
Good thing. I mean, another thing about his everything he did, it seemed like, as I was reading through all this stuff, it seemed like it was a grind. It wasn't like it didn't all happen super fast, or like he wasn't like the first one and everybody flocked to it. Like he was grinding it out to get these stores, and was,
I mean, it's
everything that they're worth today, which is $2 billion according to Forbes, is because of the grinding, not just an overnight success. So
I mean, that's entrepreneurship at its
just a blue collar fella,
son of a farmer.
Who was drowned by Sherman's Raiders.
Son of a drought farmer.
Yeah.
Yikes. Damn it, Sherman's Raiders.
But the Belk family's done a lot for the Charlotte area.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll probably talk about them some more at some point.
For all those other breweries in the Monroe.
Yeah, there's other families. I mean, other dudes. There's the John Montgomery, the brother, not the son, house is like the largest house, or I don't know if it was the largest or the oldest house in Union County, but it's like pretty nice. And you can have like bridal luncheons there. The owners have like opened it up.
Fancy.
It's like their personal home.
So,
but they open it up for like intimate events.
What you're saying is, after this first season of our podcast is over, that you need to get into marketing for bridal expos, because you got us a wedding location last week, and now we've got bridal luncheons, and
I mean,
you've got it all nailed down.
I just know where these places are.
You can be a wedding planner. How sweet.
Nah, I'll pass. Tell us your story.
Well, now that we've gone from how sweet, I'm about to make a hard, dark turn into, like, terrible American history. So, you may want to drink up a little bit. But before I dive into that, of course, I'm going to just a couple quick facts run down on Monroe itself. It was founded as a planned settlement. I don't really know what that means. I just assume it wasn't. I assume that means that it wasn't like some of the other towns we've talked about in the past, where it just kind of happened based on other things. It was, we're strategically choosing this to build up.
Yeah.
Versus people organically flocking.
Good location.
Yes. I've read different dates on this, but they formed and selected a county seat either in 1842 or 1843, and then it officially incorporated either in 1843 or 1844.
Okay.
It was named after the 5th president, James Monroe.
What?
Which actually, Union County was originally fought to be named Jackson County, because Andrew Jackson was supposedly
from the wax house,
born in Union County. But there's this debate over his parents owned a cabin here, but the mother's family lived in South Carolina, and so they're not sure if he was born physically here or in South Carolina, so there's that debate. But
this area has had a long history of debatable North Carolina, South Carolina lines.
I mean, it's just
like
the Carolinas, just it's a blur.
Like just 2 years ago, they found out that the state line was in a wrong spot somewhere. Yeah, and they, like, people who used to live in South Carolina now lived in North Carolina. Like recent. And it was around here, like Rock Hill-ish.
That's nuts.
Like, just like a couple 100 yards, they moved it because they had mapped it wrong or something. And they're like, oh, you actually live in North Carolina.
That would screw you up hardcore with,
Yeah,
like, taxes and, like, college and...
Because people live in South Carolina because of the taxes.
Right.
It's not a nice place.
Yikes. Nonetheless, yeah, I mean, that kind of seems to be the, like, ongoing thread of this area, this greater area, meaning, like, the Carolinas. Because, I mean, we talked last week just about Davidson and Mooresville and Cornelius and all of it. And it's just literally, it's right on top of each other. And trying to pull any of it apart is just so crazy. And it just upscales to the whole states, like, both of the states. It's crazy.
Yeah, Robin Thicke.
Where, yikes. I'm like, my neck of the woods, we're like hard lined, like, nope, you're Jersey. We're Pennsylvania. You're New York. Keep out my space. But,
yeah, everybody
we also had the Delaware River just going whoosh, so it wasn't really much of an issue at that point. But
well, those have probably changed over time.
Sure. Anyway. So, shocker. Railroad helped develop the greater Monroe area. And they did, since this is now an ongoing thread, get their first official post office in 1844. What?
So I would say they were incorporated. 1844 is a real date. Because they got their post office.
I don't know. But some notable folks from the area, again, debatably, Andrew Jackson, which I guess partially because of the debate and partially just based on the times, they ended up calling it Union.
Yeah, I think he was more Waxhaw.
Nonetheless,
But yeah.
That's what I read. Christine Darden, which I don't expect you to know that name, but I thought you would be interested in. She was an aeronautical engineer at NASA.
Oh.
And the first African-American woman promoted to senior executive service. I believe that said she was born in 1948. So, the latter half of the century. But I thought that was really cool. One, I know NASA. Space.
Yeah.
And two, girl power and, like, black power. Rock on. I was like, it feels almost racist just to say black power instead of, like, African-American power. I don't know. It gets weird, and it gets really like, oh God, what am I allowed to say? Nonetheless.
Or did you just not say anything?
But it's not that I'm not saying mean things. Like, if you can't say something nice, don't say something, but
Anyways.
go her. Casey and JoJo.
And the Sunshine Band. Was the Sunshine Band from here too?
Casey and the Sunshine Band is something different. Casey and JoJo, the R&B singer-songwriters, are from this area. And I did not know that. I thought that was cool. Richard Huntley, a name I thought you would recognize. From the sports, number one.
I know one. Jamison Crowder.
I don't know that one.
He's from here. He's a receiver in the NFL. He went to Monroe High School.
John Parker, another name I don't expect you to know, but I just thought was interesting. He was a judge on the Nuremberg trials.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Calvin Richardson, the sports. You're letting me down. These were actually familiar names to me.
What?
There was, I forget his name now.
Calvin Richardson.
There is a, oh no, Calvin Richardson is not the sports. Calvin Richardson's an R&B singer. But Richard Huntley is sports. There's a Canadian all-star player that was on the list who I did not write down. And I was like, why do I know this name? And now that I thought through it more, I'm like 95% positive that I know that name because of, How I Met Your Mother. And it was something that, like, Robin brought up. And then, of course, since this happened on a previous episode, I have to just throw it out there. We've got a man by the name of Scott Williams with the denotation of serial killer.
Oh.
So, we got some more of those around this neck of the woods. And, he is still currently incarcerated for He took an Alford plea for raping and kidnapping 2 women, but he was originally arrested on charges for murdering 3 different women. So there's that. He's still chilling.
Just 3?
That they know of.
Come on, Monroe.
He's just chilling.
No Bundy types. Just 3.
Just 3. And assaulting aggressively 2 others that we know of. That we know of. But all right, so hard dark turn, unfortunately, but...
From serial killer?
I know, right? So, I'm going to take us to 1958. A little further into the future where you started. And I'm going to talk to us about...
Almost 100 years from when I started.
A little bit. Yeah, but you were still going in the 2000s, so...
Yeah.
I'm going to take us to the kissing case.
Dun, dun, dun.
So something to keep in mind. We're talking late 50s. We're talking post-World War II. Many African Americans went and fought in the war. Came back and were still being... mistreated, being expected to be second-class citizens, even after everything they sacrificed. And we locally in the Monroe area have been dealing with, there was this public pool. It was at I believe the Monroe Country Club, but the pool itself was a public pool where every citizen was taxed to build it, and it caused a lot of chaos because it was segregated, and they were trying to desegregate it because everybody had chipped in for it, in essence, and it caused a lot of chaos. There was a lot of KKK disturbances and attacks on the people who were pushing that most aggressively, and so we're in troublesome times.
Okay, how do you segregate a pool? Water's flowing everywhere.
Like they were not allowing
there. Okay.
Right. It wasn't like
Split
half
up.
and half.
Okay.
It was you're not allowed in this pool. This is a white only pool.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
If there, it sounds more like it would be officially segregated if there was a second pool next door that was blacks only, but no, it was a white only
Or
pool.
if they just had one of those like divider lines that lifeguards yell at you for like leaning on.
Yeah,
If
little
they
buoys
had like that. Yeah, they're like black side, white side.
But no, they weren't allowed in there at all.
Okay.
So this is the level of tensions and frustrations and everything that we're already in as a country and as an area specifically. So, 1958, we have Sissy Marcus. She is 7 or 8 years old.
Okay.
Little white girl.
Okay.
We have James Hanover Thompson. And we have David Fuzzy Simpson.
Oh, fuzzy.
James is 9. David is 7. Both black guys.
Okay.
Both of them, for the record, still alive and live in the area.
Ah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I mean, 58. Like, my dad was born in 57. My mom was born in 57. So they're 61 now. So they would be 70, give or take. But nonetheless, one day.
What about Sissy Marcus? You said like all 3 of them live here?
Not sure.
Okay.
You'll understand. Well, she is the cause of this entire incident, but not the focal point of the entire incident.
Okay.
And granted, I can't speak to her character whatsoever, but she was a child and I don't think did anything wrong.
Yeah.
So we have James's mother, the 9-year-old,
Okay.
used to work for Sissy's family
Okay.
at one point in the past, whatever. So they knew each other. They like he would come with his mother to help her. She would like clean the house or whatever. And so Sissy and James were sort of friends. You know, they'd play. They were both kids. They didn't care. They were happy. So somewhere down the road, Sissy goes out and starts playing with a whole bunch of kids. And she recognizes James and as a former friend. Like, hey, I know you. They're all hanging out. Cool. They're a bunch of kids. I'm not sure if it was a dare. There's varying reports, whatever. At the end of the day, she ends up giving James and David each a kiss on the cheek.
Okay.
No harm, no foul. We're all people. We're all kids. We're cool. We're chill. She goes home, doesn't think anything of it, is telling her mom what she did that day. And good old Mama Marcus ain't having none of it. And I say this all in jest, but this is all very real and very not cool. Not even a little bit. So she just goes home and is just like, oh yeah, I was playing with all these kids today. And, you know, like I kissed this kid and this kid. And she's 7 or 8. I've heard varying reports. I did actually read something that said 6 as well, but mostly they say 7 or 8. So her mother is enraged, calls the cops, tells them that these 2 boys raped her daughter. Keep in mind, the girl...
If anything, she raped them.
I mean, too far. But yeah, like, she kissed them on the cheek as an innocent child all around. I mean, maybe this is super ignorant on my side, but, like, I don't know that a 7 or 9-year-old boy can rape someone. At least not in the, like, very standard terms of it. Nonetheless, no good. So the mother freaks out, calls the cops immediately, claims they raped her. The father and a bunch of neighbors grab a ton of shotguns and go looking for the boys and their parents, which all the stuff that I've read have just said their mothers. So I don't know if they did have fathers at home or if it was literally just their mothers or if the mothers were just like highlighted in the stories and the fathers were just kind of background characters. Not that they're characters, they're real
the
people.
Mother
but,
worked for.
Right. So I'm not really sure, but I'm just going to say parents or mothers and it kind of means the same. Went looking for him. I assume nobody found anybody in that sense because I did not read any reports of anyone dying.
Okay.
The police found the boys later that night and arrested them. Again, a 7 and 9-year-old boy arrested them for molestation. If you're listening to this podcast, you may want to hop over to YouTube because I keep making faces and I can't articulate them. So I apologize for the like random silent pauses, but it's a face with truly just lack of ability to describe some of my thoughts in this process. So these boys were detained for 6 days with no access to parents, no access to legal counsel. They were handcuffed and they were beaten everywhere but their faces, so it didn't show, with an attempt to get false confessions. A few days later, they were found guilty of molestation by a judge who said, quote, "Since they just stood silent and didn't say nothing, I knew that was a confession of guilt."
Okay.
That's how that happened.
Is this pre-Miranda rights? When were the Miranda rights?
This is something I actually did study in poli-sci, and I don't know. I would say before. I would say well before, because also these are minors. Significantly minors. It's not even like, 16, 17, they're maybe pushing adulthood.
Yeah.
No, they're 7 and 9. So they're found guilty because they said nothing. And still are given no access to legal counsel and are sentenced to go to a very strict reform school until they are 21 years old.
Okay.
So they're detained. The parents are still not allowed to see them through any of this. The mothers both lose their jobs. And then the NAACP starts working to raise money for an appeal, which I need my second page of notes for this because it's that much of a story. If you remember a few weeks ago, we talked about Freemore West and Town Brewing. Mm-hmm. We talked about Freemore West and one Mr. Kelly Alexander, who was the president of that chapter of the NAACP, mm-hmm. who had his house bombed, which was about 7 or 8 years later than this story. He was involved with them. I did actually see some photos of him with the boys, so that's an interesting tie-in, if nothing else, for our stories. So they work towards raising funds for an appeal, but the governor was like, nope, ain't happening. Like, wouldn't hear anything of it. Like, did not want to deal with this. Like, case closed, we're done here, carry on with life. So they wouldn't let the appeals happen. There were a bunch of protests and everything. I didn't read anything about specific violence and like escalated protests or anything. Just, protests happen. There were some relatively famous sit-ins around the greater Charlotte area. I think I saw something up in like Greensboro even, that there was a huge sit-in.
Was that the famous Greensboro one?
Maybe.
I
didn't dive deep into it, so maybe.
What was that place called?
We'll have to look into it.
There's the famous one that happened in Greensboro.
You say that as if I'm from here and would know what that is.
Yeah, I told you about it when we went to Greensboro.
Did you? Clearly I listen when you talk.
It was like...
Tell me what it is. What it really, really is. I have to make jokes because, like, my heart hurts talking about this stuff. This is just terrible. So I'm sorry for anybody that I'm offending because it's insensitive, and I know it is. It's disgusting.
Woolworth.
I don't know.
At the lunch counter.
It was a lunch counter thing,
Woolworth.
but...
That was like national famous.
Right. Well, I'm not sure because I think I did read a little bit about that, but I'm not sure if that was more of just a civil rights in general or if that was actually related to these boys. But...
Well, if you remember when we went to Greensboro, remember the picture of that clock?
Yes.
It was on that street,
mm-hmm,
that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they had like pictures of it in the windows of the Woolworths.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I have been to the Museum of the New South right after the riots and everything happened. And I went and like, there's the like no justice, no peace, and a lot of that kind of history. And then just... Mm-hmm. A lot of different parts of history. And so I read some about that too, but I'm not positive. It's hard now. Like at that point it was just like, oh, this is so fascinating, but didn't really retain it in the way to be able to connect it. Yeah. So I'm not sure. But nonetheless, there was all kinds of shenanigans happening. They even ended up bringing in a like really well-known civil rights lawyer from New York. And Eleanor Roosevelt went to the governor himself and said, this is messed up. We need to talk. You need to like pardon these boys. And it was still, I'm not hearing anything about this. We're carrying on with life. This is done. Case closed. Mm-hmm. And sort of, and I only say this because I don't think it is as drastic. I think the story I'm currently telling is more drastic. So, but what it reminded me of is not as drastic, but to a certain degree, the Adnan Syed, is that it? His story, and just how like corrupt the police were in trying so desperately, like, we just want to close this. We need to keep our reputations to look good. And like, yeah, I still don't know. And that's why all of like Serial and everything else is so well done that you still really don't know who did it, but it's very clear how messed up the cops are, in my opinion. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of that in our world, not even just America, whatever, but it's just, people have a certain reputation and are going to do everything they can to protect it, and they don't care who goes down in that process. And that's not limited to just cops. I think there's plenty of cops who are corrupt and plenty who are not. But it just makes me like, that gave me a visual image to put to this story, even though I know that story is not as intense as the one I'm currently telling. And it's just hard to work through. And I feel so, like, insensitive even to say that. For me to have to read through it is difficult because I'm a white woman and we'll never know what that is. And so it's, I don't know, it's very strange. Nonetheless, like, yeah, even Eleanor Roosevelt came in and the governor was just like, nope, like, how you do that, I don't know. But
she's just a woman.
I will punch you right in the throat. That was honestly, though, something I came in and I was like, I kind of wanted to comment on that. And I was like, quite frankly, I felt like it took away from the injustice happening to the African American community, which is why I didn't say it. But they brought in a famous New York civil rights lawyer, I assume is a black man, and then Eleanor Roosevelt, like, you know, the most powerful woman in the country. But because we've got a black person and we've got a woman, they don't care.
Yeah.
And
not today. Not in North Carolina.
Yeah, like, it's terrible. It's nuts. So several weeks go by. The mothers still haven't seen their boys. Eventually, I don't know what permission, like what gave this person permission, but there was a journalist from London that was allowed, right? Like, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
A journalist from London came and was given permission to go talk to the boys. And so I don't know how that happened. So she brought the mothers with her. I believe it was a woman. Brought the mothers with her. And again, I don't know how they weren't able to see them, but this journalist was, and then was able to bring them.
Well, because she was from London, she was fancy.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know what happened there. Smuggled a camera in and took a photo of the boys and their mothers hugging. And you could see how very clearly the boys had been abused and just all that kind of damage. And so printed up a story in London with photo and everything else. And this blew up in Europe and in Asia. So much so that the U.S. Information Agency received over 12,000 letters expressing outrage for how these boys are being treated in the entire situation. There was an international committee formed in Europe to defend these boys, and demonstrations on behalf of the 7- and 9-year-old boy happened in Paris, Rome, Vienna, and Rotterdam. Like, who knew Monroe could cause that? Like,
yeah,
that's nuts in its own right. Like, I'm proud of the world, like, rock on, because this is super jacked up, but, like, that's crazy that...
I want to come back to smuggled a camera in.
Yes.
In the 50s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're not wrong.
How's that?
You're not wrong. I don't know. But, I mean, they didn't have metal detectors or anything, I imagine.
Yeah, but she didn't needed a rolling case.
You're not wrong.
Cameras back then.
You're not wrong.
It wasn't like wasn't like an iPhone or like a GoPro or even a pocket, a little point and
DJ Osmo.
Camera. Yeah. They didn't have those back then. They were big.
Yeah.
It was like Polaroid instant size, but not instant.
You're not wrong.
And they had the big bulbs that every time you flashed, you had to change out.
Yeah. I don't know. I do not know.
Sounds less like smuggling and more like somebody letting them in.
Well, it might have been like, we also take for granted, I think, this century and the times we live in. Like, people getting patted down by TSA 20 years ago was unheard of.
If you're unheard of.
As a kid, I walked straight up to the gate of the airplane, basically could walk on an airplane, say bye to my parents going somewhere, and get back off of it. Yeah. Like, you can't go anywhere near that shit today.
But back then, I mean, and she was going into prison.
Right.
They would have seen a camera.
But I'm saying
let it in.
I'm saying she might have had like a bag or a box of stuff saying, oh, this is my recording equipment. This is my whatever. Like, I'm doing this interview. You're letting me in to do this interview. And they said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And didn't check it. I don't know. Maybe they did. I don't know. But I think it's feasible, and I think we take for granted how little privacy we have sometimes.
Okay.
I think people let a lot more
go. Opposite. Take it for granted.
Like, I think we forget how much more leeway was given with things even 20 years ago, let alone 60, 70 years ago. But anyway, yeah, valid point, totally valid point, because I did not really think that part through. So there were all these protests and demonstrations all over the world. And then due to international shame, they told the parents, okay, we're going to release your kids. You need to sign this like release paperwork, which was basically saying,
admitting guilt.
Yes, my kids are entirely guilty and I will take them back into my custody. And so they said no and wouldn't sign it because they were like, my kid did absolutely nothing. So 2 days later from when they refused signing those papers, after the boys had been in this like detention center for over 3 months, they were pardoned by the governor with absolutely zero explanation, nothing. It just out of the blue happened. No apologies were ever given. Nobody ever acknowledged anything except like, oh, by the way, here's your kid, and carried on with life, like as if it didn't even happen. And that's kind of where that story ends in a sense. Like I said, both boys are still alive. They're both still in the area. They've, and I want to say it was 2011, did an interview with like NPR, and Thompson's sister, he was the older one, the one whose mother used to work for the family, said that he was never the same afterward. The families, the KKK was, there were reports of being 7,000 KKK members in Monroe with a total population of 12,000. So like, it was a big thing. And I know some of this to you, you're like, well, duh, I know that. But to me, it's like, yes, all of this is to a certain degree taught to me growing up, but I also come from a northeastern state where, yes, I'm sure there were slaves. Yes, there was all kinds of like terrible history, but it was not the same. And so to me, like, even though I know this, my brain still can't wrap around it. And so they had crosses burned in their yards. They had, like, their houses were shot at regularly, that it was just, okay, get up this morning, sweep the bullets off the front porch. Like, that was just normal. And that's nuts. And she said that, her brother was never the same after it. He's actually been, like, in and out of jail ever since because he just kind of doesn't know. And that's what he said in his part of the interview is like, I wonder what would have been different about my life if that hadn't happened. Like, maybe I would have been a doctor, maybe I would have gone through school and done XYZ. But during that, even just that 3 months of being in there, like, they had to have like counseling once a week, every week, where the counselor would just talk terrible, terrible things into them and said, like, you should have been castrated, you should have, like, all these terrible negative things every single week, let alone whatever physical, like it's, oh, only 3 months. Oh, they were a kid. But like, that crap scars you hard. And, yes, we become adults and yes, we make our own choices and yes, life. But I mean, I can't imagine the like just emotional scarring you would have from that. But I think one of the things, so in terms of where the story is, like that's kind of where it is. Like, they were screwed over royally for something they, not even remotely close to, like, they did literally nothing. And all of this international chaos came from it, which, who knew Monroe could put itself on the map like that? And then, just like, oh, by the way, here you go, whatever, carry on. And they have to live with that for the rest of their lives. And so I can't imagine that. But also is reading articles that are published as recent as, the last 6 months, just listening to reading through the comments in those current articles, is nuts. Like, there was something that...
Well, that's the internet.
I mean, yes. And yes, I fully acknowledge there's trolls and just idiots and whatever. But they're like the sheer racist hatred coming out. And, you know, currently, it boggles my mind. And, like, I'm not ignorant to think that everything is perfect and everybody's equal and everything is happy-go-lucky for everyone all the time. Like, I'm not an idiot, and I'm fully aware that is so not the case. But it boggles my mind that there are people who literally would, like, still support something like this happening.
Yeah, I mean,
I cannot wrap my brain around, like, in this current...
you on the internet.
I know that, but it does. It does. Like, even in your worst moment as a troll, how do you possibly...
Well, that's probably not even their worst moment.
Yeah. But I just cannot wrap my brain around anyone at all in this world thinking such harsh things about another human being. Like, ever. Even if it was, like, someone they knew specifically who personally jacked them up, like, that would be the most reasonable explanation for me to say, like, feel free to hate them with all the hatred you have. Like, I could understand that. But these are complete strangers for no reason.
The internet.
I don't understand it. Like,
that's how things work on the internet.
But it's nuts.
You see the funniest thing you've ever seen in your life on the internet, and then you see that stuff on the internet as well. There's everything there.
I know. It's insane. It's insane.
And most of it are empty threats. Empty.
I hope so.
Yeah. Say 99%.
But still. Like, but that's the kind of stuff, like, it breaks my heart just to read that. And again, I'm not African American. I can't say what that feels like. I know what it feels like to be discriminated against as a woman, but I think that's not to the same degree as African Americans are discriminated against. But I think even if I know someone is just entirely being a jackass, being a troll for zero reason just to get a rise out of me, they're still going to elicit an emotional response from me if I read something that terrible about me as a woman, or like me specifically, or women in general, or whatever. Like, it's going to bother me if it resonates with me at all, even though I know that's their thing and I shouldn't let it. And so I can't even imagine people who aren't able to see it for what it is and distinguish the two as like a troll versus just a real thought.
To be fair, if even though you know and it still affects you, you're not able to distinguish the two.
Right. I mean, yes, I agree. That's what I'm saying, is like, even if there was someone who can distinguish the two, I still can't imagine them being able to read those kinds of things and, like, just let it go. And I imagine that a lot of people in the world can't even look at it the way I look at it, maybe, and just are, like, enraged, and, like, it perpetuates a cycle, and then that troll gets exactly what they wanted. And so, like, yeah, maybe their threat was an empty threat, but they're still inciting something because they're, like, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't understand it. The world is a crazy place, and I hate it. And we all just need to freaking get along. Can we all just get along?
We need to start having happy stories. You get on rants every single episode.
I do. I get so upset.
So let's not
I'm
do
sorry.
That next week.
I think that Miss Sissy Marcus had it right. Give the boys a kiss on the cheek because it doesn't matter. And let's be happy and be friends and move on. But her mama needed a slap in the face. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. For naming her kid Sissy.
Well, there's that, but that's another thing. But nonetheless, spread love, not hate, and just have conversations with people if you don't understand them.
Do you imagine the Sissy and Fuzzy sitting in a tree?
Oh, you're an idiot. I appreciate that you're trying to talk me off this ledge of being so upset about all this, but oof.
Kissing. But
To our good old boys out there, I am sorry. I'm sorry.
Well,
on that wonderfully dark note,
comment, subscribe, tell Chrissy to come up with some happy stories for once in her life.
To stop being a mopey a-hole
And
on...
have you told your mama yet? You should.
I think they mamas are all sick of us by now. I think we're bad influences.
Probably.
They're probably like, the chick on that podcast gets too worked up over all this crap. She needs to chill out. She's drinking beer and getting mopey.
And it ain't even Bud Light.
No, we're converting people.
Oh.
At Southern Range, we are converting them to be craft beer drinkers. Head over to Southern Range, just down the street from the original Belk building.
I drink some Natty Light with anybody.
With the best of them and the worst of them.
Yeah. But, yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Like I said.
Thanks for dealing with my ranting and freaking out over history that I don't know how to deal with.
Check you later.
Bye. Oh.